that bit was particularly well managed because we used up the remaining rubber to finish the race, still going quickly, still comfortably ahead of Max.
Hi, I'm Miles, and I'm here with Shov to answer your questions about the Monaco Grand Prix. So let's get straight in. Our fans want to know why the new front wing was only available for one car.
Well, we're looking to have race quantities of that wing in Montreal, and normally you'd say race quantities is at least 3 because you've got one for each car and then you've got a spare available should anything happen. Now, we don't make 3 in one go. We make the first, then the second, then the third. And an upshot of that was that we had one that we could bring to Monaco, have it ready for Friday to do the weekend. Now, a while ago, the drivers had said, why do we always wait until we've got a full set? Why not just let one of us run it? So we agreed with them that given the situation with the team in terms of performance, we need to improve and we need to learn. And the way it's actually quite good to have different specs on the car in order to do that. So we did agree with the drivers that where we are now, we will be happy to bring one to the track, and they were both happy with that. Now, the difficult question was how do we decide who's going to run it? But there actually Lewis said, well, if we're going to start doing this where we haven't got enough parts, let George run it in Monaco. There will be races in the future where we have a single update, and of course we just alternate from here on in. But Lewis actually made that decision quite simple for us.
And were we happy with what we saw, how the upgrade performed?
Yeah, and to be honest, there's a reason teams don't normally bring update kits to Monaco, which is the very low speed nature of the circuit, the fact it's so busy, the short straights, it's very hard to actually evaluate anything. All the data we have seen, though, says that it was delivering performance, it was bringing a benefit. In terms of how the car was feeling, George was happy with that, and he could feel that it was a step in the right direction. So we're definitely happy with what we've seen to date, but we will learn more in Montreal, and then particularly when you get to a track like Barcelona with a wider corner speed range, you can really start to learn about it there.
Next question. Where did the vibrations George was experiencing on Friday come from?
It was a steering vibration, and you could see coming out of the tunnel, for instance, braking for the chicane, the steering wheel was moving in his hands on Friday, and that made it difficult for braking. It sort of makes the visibility a bit more challenging. Now, one of the things that changes for Monaco is you've got to get more lock. So to get round Low's hairpin, it's very, very tight, very slow. You've got to actually be able to turn the wheels more than normal. And the way that we do that is rather than making a whole new steering rack, you can just shorten the steer arms. So that then means for the same motion from the rack, you get more motion from the wheel. Now, that fairly subtle change in geometry looks to have caused this resonant mode to creep in. We were able to make some changes going into Saturday that pretty much got it under control completely. So that wasn't an issue for George in FP3 or qualifying. But as I said, it looks to be the effect of some fairly subtle changes that apply particularly to the Monaco track.
A question from our fans on YouTube. Why did Lewis and George start on the new hard tyres with such a high chance of an early red flag?
There was an early red flag. The chance of there being a lap 1 red flag is not actually that high. And the advantage of starting on that hard tyre was that if we had a red flag later in the race, then we would have been in a very strong position because we'd expected the top 4 cars to all be racing each other. They would all bring each other into the pits at some time. And we didn't think that we had a lot of risk from behind. So we expected to be able to pull away from Tsunoda. And if you're not under threat from behind, you can keep going and going and going and waiting for a red flag. Now, in that scenario, the upside gain of us being on the hard tyre, and obviously Verstappen was on the hard tyre with us, is that we could have actually had cars finishing first and third on Sunday had there been a late red flag that the 4 lead cars had reacted to. When we looked at the other scenarios of, well, what happens if it goes wrong? What if there is this lap 1? Because of the performance difference between our cars and Tsunoda, we didn't really lose any positions. And that's what you saw play out in the race. We were able to get the medium tyre to the finish with George. We didn't know for a fact we'd be able to do that, but Monaco is somewhere that you can do a lot of management of the tyre. But the simple answer is that with cars on hard, the upside gain and the best results you can get were very good, whereas the worst that can happen was actually not very different to the situation if we'd started them both on medium.
And did we ever consider splitting the tyre strategy across both cars?
We did talk about it. There are situations that you normally like to avoid, which is if your car behind, so Lewis in this instance was on a tyre with a shorter life, then you end up either deciding, do you let him undercut the lead car or do you react? But more of it was just down to the fact that both of them, their best race scenarios were if they started on the hard tyre, the cars ahead were on the medium, and we got lucky with a red flag, say lap 40, 50, 60. In that window, you could have ended up with a very significant gain of places.
And from our community on Weibo, was there any miscommunication with Lewis in the race that led to the undercut not working as we would have liked it to?
I mean, the first thing is we never thought we'd be able to undercut Max, because the reality is if we stopped because there was no one behind us and we had clear track, they are not going to stop if they don't have the window to drop out ahead of us. What we thought we'd have ended up with was Lewis then catching up to Max, who doesn't stop. Max is on a used set of tyres, Lewis is on a new set of tyres, and he can actually put Max under pressure. Now, we didn't think it would really change the race situation, but in the unlikely event that George was struggling to make the finish, it did give us a little bit of an insurance policy. Now, the bit that didn't go well was because we didn't tell Lewis to go flat out on that out lap. Max actually had the gap to make the pit stop, so he was able to, because he wasn't going as fast as he could to start with, he could push up behind George, so he gained time against himself because he was managing. He was able to do that stop, get out in front, and what we inadvertently ended up with was Max on a new set behind George, which wasn't ideal, but as you saw, it didn't really look like George was at risk of losing that position. He'd managed the tyres well and he had good rubber at the end. But certainly one area of the race that we should have been a bit tidier, we could have been a bit clearer with the messaging. But what would have happened is we would have just had Lewis on fresh rubber, still able to get that fastest lap, which was one of the considerations that we wanted to do that, and also able to put a bit of pressure on Max.
And a question from Instagram. Why didn't we use the soft tyre for Lewis on that third stint?
Well, we thought, given the risk of graining and the lack of data, so no one had really long run the soft tyre, we didn't think it would be a good tyre to push on. Now, you saw that Stroll actually took the soft. He even overtook someone on it. But when you look at the pace that he was going at, it was around a second and a half slower than Lewis was doing on the hard tyre when Lewis went for the fastest lap attempt. So we're still pretty confident that the hard tyre for the job we needed it to do was the right choice. And that was sort of vindicated by the fact that Max did the same. He also went for that hard tyre. We would have taken a soft tyre had it been a stop at the very end for fastest lap. Had there been a safety car with 10 laps to go, would have no doubt gone for the soft, because you'd have just had that warm-up advantage and the ability to attack cars on the restart when everyone's bunched up. But certainly for the longest stint that we had to do, the hard tyre looked like the clear favourite.
George showed remarkable tyre management on the mediums. How's that possible?
Well, I mean, the drivers have certainly got a good feel for what the tyres can handle. So how they can extract a good lap time without damage them is part of the skill set that you need a driver to have these days. But then they're also being helped by the engineers. We've got data from Friday where we long run that tyre, and we knew a certain level of pushing would cause graining. So we were able to sort of advise them on the pace and the corner speeds to avoid that. And then there's also ways that you can estimate the wear of the tyre. You can't measure it, but you can certainly estimate it, and we're monitoring that to give them feedback. So once Max had done his pit stop, and suddenly you've got Max chasing down George on his old tyres, we knew that we had the rubber there to push a bit. George picked up the pace. He still had decent lap times at the end of the day, but that bit was particularly well managed because we used up the remaining rubber to finish the race, still going quickly, still comfortably ahead of Max, but not a situation where we were over managing it.
Taking into account all our upgrades and our progress so far, what can we expect for Montreal?
Well, we're certainly hoping to build on the momentum that we've had recently. We've really been closing down that gap to the front. We've still got to get in amongst those teams, and it's been frustrating how close, the second race in a row, George has been 1,000th of a second off taking another position in qualifying. He was only a few hundredths of a second off, ending up third on the grid. But we're wanting to continue in that direction. We've got some smaller updates. We're certainly going to have front wing 2 on both cars, so that's something that we've been working on, and we'll make sure we can deliver that. And then in terms of the track itself, it's been completely resurfaced. Probably we're going to see similar issues with the graining that we had in Monaco. The difference in Montreal is you can't just drive slow. If you drive slow there, you'll get overtaken. Corner speeds, like Monaco's, a lot of slow speed corners, and it was encouraging that we had decent pace through the corners in Monaco. But again, the difference in Montreal now is you haven't got short straights, you've got big long straights. You don't run a maximum downforce wing. You'll drop a bit of drag to get down those straights a bit quicker. But the main thing is if we've got decent pace in the corners, hopefully we can sort of keep building this momentum and try and improve on the recent qualifying race positions.